Good morning, everyone. I hope y'all all had a good evening. I headed up from Savannah last night and got up this morning and decided to do a video. We have, I think this is Fulton County Court, and we have a Judge Mincy, and got a kind of a strange one. We got a 60-year-old lady who's been arrested for striking, assault. On a much younger lady, and it gets a little hot. I hope y'all enjoy.
All right, this is case number 22CR. All right, this is case number 22CR 006706J. Teresa Ann Wright. You're charged with one count of unlawful conduct during a 911 call, willful obstruction of a law enforcement officer, and simple battery. The offense date is October the 5th, 2022. Pre-trial.
It's an eighth arrest. Last was 2004. Battery/simple battery family violence. Criminal damage to property, second degree. Theft by taking. Those were dead docket. And before that was 1998. That's it.
Okay.
Pretty interesting history for a 60-year-old lady.
State.
Yes, Your Honor. On October 5th, 2022, Officer Gunawan, Gunawan, was dispatched to 3390 Fairburn Road, Atlanta, Georgia, apartment E72, in reference to property damage. Upon investigating the call, the defendant, Ms. Wright, became irate with the officer's line of questioning and began yelling and becoming boisterous with the officer. The officer had to retreat to his vehicle to avoid the defendant's behavior. While Officer Gunawan was on the phone with his supervisor, he could hear the defendant on the phone with the 911 operator berating him about how he does his job and repeatedly calling him stupid. The victim in this case, Caitlin Green, exited out of her apartment and asked Officer Gunawan what was going on at the time. The defendant came out and began yelling at the sight of Miss Green and began speaking in a vulgar and obscene manner, calling Miss Green out of her name. The defendant then threw a shoe at Miss Green, which did hit her. Officer Gunawan has been out to this location several times due to noise complaints from both parties in this case. The state's recommendation is $1,000 surety bond on each charge, no contact with the victim, Caitlin Green, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons, 1-day anger awareness, and a stay away from the incident location at 3390 Fairburn Road. That's an apartment complex. The state would argue that the defendant poses a risk of reoffending due to the history of the parties and them living in the same apartment complex. The defendant does have an older history, but does have some violent arrest history in the past. Nothing further from the state at this time, Your Honor.
All right.
Keep in mind, she's 60 years old, and you wouldn't think all this, that she was capable of all this, but
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
Arrests are not convictions. My client has no violent conviction history. She is 60 years old, has been a resident of the state of Georgia all her life. She denies the allegations made by the prosecution. In fact, she is the victim, Your Honor. She was the one who called the police because her neighbors had damaged her car. She called 911 to make a complaint. The officer who came over was quite rude and dismissive towards my client and totally disrespectful to her. He didn't want to listen to what she was saying about what was happening and about the history of what has been going on with her neighbors and the attacks that they have made on her. As a matter of fact, the son of the alleged victim actually hit my client in her eye with a stick, and a detective is working on it because they plan to issue a warrant for his arrest. So my client has been going through a lot, and I would like the court to know, Your Honor, my client recently lost her son. This was about 3 or 4 months ago, and her mother around the same time. So she's grieving, and she's had to take care of her son's child. That's a 12-year-old granddaughter that she is the only guardian for because her mother is not a part of her life. My client hasn't had the opportunity to grieve, and she's just going through a lot at this moment. And to have to be arrested after she has called 911 for help just seems, it just should not happen, Your Honor. My client is not currently employed. I would ask the court to give her a signature bond so she can get out of jail and take care of her granddaughter, Your Honor. She definitely was the victim here based on what she has told me. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. And so the relationship with this Caitlin Green and Miss Wright, tell me that one more time.
Your Honor, they live in the same apartment complex. My client tells me that for some time, they have been harassing her. They are very noisy. When she talks to the management of the complex, the management instructed her to call the police. And she has called the police a few times. So the prosecutor mentioned that there has been a history of the police going there. That is true because they have targeted my client because she complains about the noise. But apparently the neighbor is an adult female with some adult children living in the house, and they have targeted my client. But she's currently going through a lot, Your Honor, based on what she tells me. She's lost her child. She hasn't had an opportunity to grieve, and it's just been a lot on her. And to call the police and then you end up being arrested.
Well, I guess my biggest problem is they're neighbors in the same complex. And so, you know, if I do a stay away for Miss Wright, then that's not going to be helpful to her with her situation. What I'm trying to figure out is how we can somewhat eradicate this issue for now, and what we're going to do as far as them all living close together in this apartment complex.
Your Honor, if I may, I do believe that Miss Caitlin Green is on the call. If you would like to hear from her, or if she would like to speak.
Miss, do you wish to address the court, Miss Green?
Yes.
It gets interesting.
Raise your right hand for me. Do you affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Okay.
We can't see her, Your Honor.
Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Green.
Yeah, all right, I'm about to go on the camera. What a light is.
All right, I've sworn you in, Miss Green. Tell me, are you in fear of Miss Wright?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you're in fear of her. If she were to come back, you think that there would be other incidents, or what are you telling me?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm at fear because her family, they keep coming around our door, banging on our windows, trying to fight us. When we, like I said yesterday, it was nothing. She just keep going crazy. So I'm at fear. My household is at fear. We haven't been home in 2 nights because her family keeps harassing us.
Okay, like I said, how old are you? How old are you?
I'm 21.
21 years old?
Yes.
You live there with your mother or your family or someone?
Yes, I live with my brother.
60-year-old.
With your brother. How old is he?
He's 22.
Okay, and Miss Wright is 60 years old. And so you're afraid of Miss Wright?
Yes. Yes. I walked up the door and just got attacked, and her family keeps trying to. My mama, they like, yes. I fear her and her family. Yes.
How close are your apartments? How close
We
do you
right
all?
on top. On top
of each other.
Like every time somebody comes out the door out of our household, she just hits them. We are at fear, but we are in the process of moving. Both units have to move, so we're in the process of moving. But my only concern is while we there, we don't want to be targeted. We don't need people, shooting. Somebody shot one of her family members shot. Like we just fear for our life right now. We're like, I'm not home right now. We have to leave because we don't feel safe where we at because they keep targeting us. She keeps calling the police. They say that they not on our side, but they see that it's a petty situation. It started about a speaker. She gets mad because my brother plays his speaker. She kept calling the police. It got to a point where the police gave up because they said you keep calling the police about a situation that we can't really do anything about. So, like I said, I guess that's why she's saying that the officer that came out yesterday, didn't help her. But he is not rude. He helped me. He was there and witnessed everything. Nobody is picking sides. This lady is just, the situation calmed down, ma'am. I guess her family came in town last weekend. They came in town last weekend and said, they knocked on our door and said, oh, yeah, y'all been, bothering our family member over a year. What's up? We want to fight. And it's just every day they've been harassing us.
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to do again is we have to protect the victims in the case. And I'm trying to find out what I can do to make sure that we don't have any more incidents. Ms. McLeod, does Ms. Wright have somewhere else to go stay?
She does not, Your Honor. She isn't even working. And based on what this complaining witness is saying, she claims my client has family members, but then she herself said the family members just came into town recently. My client doesn't live with anybody but her granddaughter. She's 60 years old. These are young people. To suggest that she complains, them afraid.
Don't cut off. Hold on, Miss Green. Please don't cut her off and don't argue back. Let me go ahead and give my ruling. I don't know how to make this problem diminish at this point. And so what I'm going to do, Ms. Wright is recommended. Is that correct, pretrial?
Yes, she's right.
The problem I again have, Ms. McLeod, is that I understand Ms. Wright is 60 years old, but if I were to give her a signature bond, she shouldn't go back to this location until we can find a safe way to make sure that there are not going to be any more incidents. Otherwise, then I'll have to give her a surety bond until we can have a cooling off period. So can you talk to her to try to find her some alternate housing with some other relatives?
She doesn't have any relatives in the Metro Atlanta area, Your Honor. That's an issue because, as the complaining witness herself said, she thinks the relatives are people who just came in town. My client lives with her 12-year-old granddaughter. She's 60 years old. All she has done is complain about noise, and here we are.
Not a me problem.
She called for help, and she ends up being arrested.
Well, I'm hearing two different sides of the story. And either I'm going to give a signature bond with a stay away, or I'm going to get a surety bond until she can find somewhere to go. She'll have to stay there. Those are my only two options.
Your Honor, this is Anna Allen, supervising today for the SG's office. How are you this afternoon?
How are you?
I'm good. Is it possible to include in your order just to have no contact? I understand that Ms. Green lives above or below Ms. Green. Which is it?
I live on bottom, she lives on top.
Are you all able to go and come without seeing each other?
No, ma'am, that's what I'm saying. My mom, that's why I said we tried to, like, it's two sides of a building. Even if we try to walk on a different side, she's attacked. She just attacks us. It's like to the point where the rent office people can't even help because she curses them out. They came to fix our door yesterday that her kids kicked in the night before because it was an altercation. We had to leave. We were scared that we were going to get shot up. The next morning we came back home, our front door was kicked in. The maintenance.
And you stated that you all are in the process of moving. When do you think you will be moved?
Well, the rent office told us we have until like November. So sometimes next month, you know, we trying to keep the peace. But like I said, my only concern is when we walk out the door, we shouldn't get attacked. We shouldn't have people surrounding us with guns and they want to fight. We shouldn't have that because we don't want the drama. That's my only concern. I understand that she is 60. I understand that. But when you are the one that's causing the problem, what can I do?
I understand.
My mom is 50 and she punched my mom in her eye. So, hey, age don't really matter at this point. You picking and the police saw you, you did what you did.
Okay.
Your Honor,
State, do you have any other recommendations?
may I say something, Your Honor? Just
real
based
quick,
on
because I got to move on.
Just based on the complaining witness's testimony, they're the ones being asked to leave by the management, so there must be some reason why they are the ones who are being asked to leave and not my client.
Ms. McLeod, that's not what she testified to.
She said both.
That is
right. Didn't
that
she
is
say
what
both
she said, that they gave
leave?
her until November to leave.
But didn't she say both of them have to move?
Yes,
No,
she
Your
did,
Honor.
Your Honor.
That is
No,
exactly
my
what she
client has
testified.
not
That is
been asked
exactly
to
what
leave.
she said, Your
Both
Honor.
units have to move. Both
That's what
units
she
is
said.
under eviction because of the situation in
Right.
the
Both
apartment.
units. Right. Both units are being evicted.
So, Your Honor, would you let us put this to the heel of the calendar and maybe we could reach out to the apartment complex? Because I'm sure if this is an ongoing issue, there'll be other reports and other people who can testify to this and give us some clarity about whether this lady is being attacked and assaulted and targeted by Mrs. Green and her family, or whether it's the other way around.
Right. That would be good. I would appreciate your help on that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Position 10, Lewis.
Here it comes.
Your Honor.
Yes.
On the Teresa Wright case, I was not able to get anybody on the phone at the complex, but I did get the officer on the phone and he's available. If you want to call him, he'll talk to you there. It's his off day, but I have his number and I asked if he'd be willing to chat with the court or answer any questions. If you want, I can tell you what he said.
I know I hate to bother him on his off day. I know how they are on their off day. They're getting rest. If I were to talk with him, he'd have to get on the Zoom link and talk to him. I would not necessarily call him, or if the state is so inclined to just give me a summary, I would trust what the state would tell me.
Absolutely.
As to what he says about the situation and what he thinks.
The officer, Mr. Gunawan, reported that he had been out to the location on multiple occasions, that the apartment complex is under new ownership, and that he had spoken to them as well as maintenance and security at the location on multiple occasions about the back and forth between these two parties. He reported that he believed if released on bond that the defendant would reoffend, that she's incapable of not re-instigating. He reported that she actually ran from him on the scene, that although she's 60, and I take offense of that. I'm not quite 60, but
I'm closer than you.
Right. That she ran from him on the scene and was quite agile when inclined. But what he did point out was that he responded to the location because Ms. Wright called to report that there was property damage, that he never even got to the point of talking to her about it because she has no way to show who damaged her property. And she was very upset with him about his response to that. She left him and went into her house and closed the door. And it was at that time that the officer was approached by Ms. Green, who was talking to him about what was going on, not talking about the defendant in any way, not causing a problem. The defendant then came out of her home, saw Mrs. Green, took off or went to put her shoes on and decided she was just going to start throwing them instead. And that's when she assaulted Ms. Green by throwing her shoes and hitting Ms. Green in the face. So there was no altercation between these two people. The defendant came out of her home and attacked Mrs. Green in front of the police after the defendant had been unruly and disrespectful to police. And I believe at that point, the officer just decided, clearly I have to do something and intervene. This isn't just a situation where I can talk to people.
Okay. That is very, very helpful. Deputy, let me have Ms. Wright come back real quick so I can give my ruling on position 17, if you don't mind.
And further, Your Honor, I did just receive a note that the apartment complex says that Mrs. Green has been criminally trespassed from the complex, so she cannot return there, and that the defendant has until November the 30th to get out. So it sounds like a stay away order would not be a problem.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that, Ms. Allen.
Your Honor, may I
Yes.
say something with regard to
Yes,
this?
you may.
I noticed that Ms. Allen has said that it was the other party who's been criminally trespassed from the property, not my client.
And
I
that's because
understand.
Ms.
Can I
Green is
speak?
not on the lease.
Can I speak?
It doesn't matter. She has been criminally trespassed according
Okay,
to the
but you,
people who own the
Mama,
Hold
can I
on.
speak? I'm
So
21.
she should not be
Miss
there
Green.
anyway.
Ms. Green,
No.
that's enough. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Green, please do not speak. I've not given you permission to speak. Please do not. Please do not. I think that I understand what the situation is and I understand what's going on. And again, this is just a bond hearing, but I'm trying to make sure that the victims will be safe and that there will be no more incidents at this location. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rule that there be a $3,000 surety bond on this case, $1,000 for each charge. And with the conditions of the surety bond, there will be no drugs, alcohol, or weapons. There will be no further contact with Caitlin Green. And I'm going to order with this surety bond that Ms. Wright will have to stay away from the apartment E72, which is the 3390 Fairburn Road. And I understand Miss Wright rather, may be 60 years old. And I understand that she may have custody of a 12-year-old grandchild. But until we can eradicate the situation, she just can't go back there. It sounds like there's way too much going on. If she makes bond, she's got to find somewhere else to live, or you all can apply for a modification of those conditions at that point. But I do not want Miss Wright to go back to this complex. Now, I guess, again, Ms. McLeod, you can apply for a modification once it is maybe determined by this officer in a month or so that the victim has moved from that location. And then you can apply and see if myself or another judge will grant Ms. Wright permission to go back once the victim has moved out.
Judge Mincy, earlier you had said if you gave a surety bond, it would be not be conditional on her staying away. You said if you give her
I was leaning
bond,
that way. Yeah, I was leaning that way until I got additional information, which is what I was waiting on. That's where I was leaning initially, but listening to what the officer said, who sounds to be very familiar with the situation, I trust that the state has given me correct information from this officer who was so kind to respond on his off day. I just want to make sure that things have cooled down out there. This just happened, yesterday. And it sounds like there's a lot of animosity and things going on. Initially, I was told that, and I don't know, again, to confirm that both parties have to leave in a month, or certainly the victim does. Once the victim is not there, then I believe the defendant will be able to ask for bond modification to go back. But right now, I have to make sure that there's going to be safety for at least one more month while the victim is trying to move from that location. So with the additional information, I'm just going to rule then that there would be a stay away if Ms. Wright makes bond, that she will not be able to go back to that location as long as Ms. Champion put this in the conditions, as long as the victim still resides there. She can go back with a one-time police escort to get any personal belongings. And Ms. Wright, please do not go back without a police escort. And if they determine at that time with the rental office, the property managers, that maybe Ms. Green has left early, then we can modify the bond for that. But right now, if she gets out tomorrow, the next day, and it sounds like Ms. Green won't be gone, but she cannot go back there as long as Ms. Green is residing there.
Your Honor, I
Exactly.
believe
Can she
Miss
let me
Allen
out?
stated that the apartment complex said that Miss Green has been criminally trespassed from the complex, which means she can't be there anyway. My client is 60 years old. She's looking after a 12-year-old. She's not working. When she gets a $3,000 good bond, she's not in any position to pay this. She doesn't have anyone to take care of her 12-year-old. And she was the one who was the victim here. She called the police for help, and then she
I don't
ends
know
up
that she's the
in
victim.
jail.
I'm not convinced that she's 100% the victim at this point. I want to move on from it to give my ruling. Like I say, I'm very concerned about all parties. And Miss Green, I know that you want to talk and tell me this, but this is a bond hearing. This is not the trial. And Miss Green, you need to double check if you've been trespassed and not go back to this property. It sounds like you can't even go back prior to moving out. So you
No,
may want to check with management.
the day that the fight happened, the rent office was out there. And the only reason they told me that I had to get off the property was because I was upset and I was yelling. And I didn't want to go in the house when they told me. But they just saw me there because, like I said, I had to go to the rent office because she started back up again. So the rent
I
office has
understand.
saw me. They have saw me. Like I said, I left my house last night because her family came to shoot at our house. That's why
I
I'm not at
understand. I
home.
don't want you to repeat what you've already told me because I can't spend this much more time at
And
a
I get
bond
what you're
hearing on the
saying.
facts. I understand. Well, she cannot return to the property as long as you are residing there. Okay?
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you so
So
much.
I've just given my ruling. You need to be careful. Call the police if there's any issues. Obviously, you know to do that. But she cannot return to that location unless they confirm with the rental office that you have moved out. Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Take care. All right. Next case.
Well, I guess y'all could hear I had a little bit of an audio problem on that. I'm still working through it. Now my Logitech camera mic is having some kind of an echo or something. I don't know. I'll eventually get there. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Lady was pretty interesting. The 60-year-old lady, that is, and sound like she's about hell on wheels. It's a shame people living that close to one another can't get along. Like I said in that Karen video, good night, you don't want that mess at your house. Imagine going to sleep every night wondering if someone's going to key up your car or flatten your tires or what have you. Just how can you live like that? The other thing is, it sounds to me like if the 60-year-old lady had played her cards right, she might would have won. I don't think that young lady was on the lease. So if she could have just calmed the hell down, she might would have won the whole thing. But, people just, they can't control themselves and they get themselves in trouble. Okay, well, I certainly hope y'all enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe.